You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And on today's episode, we're reviewing the first test between Australia and Bangladesh. Bangladesh were given no hope of winning a test in this series, but they proved us all wrong with an upset of all upsets, winning their first ever test in Australia and their second against Australia overall. It was a solid team performance and a good old-fashioned test cricket mentality from Bangladesh was able to get the job done. For Australia, this wasn't the start they wanted to this run of test matches in this 20 test match period. They were outplayed, and it showed across the 4 days. They need to bounce back well in Mackay in the second test to level the series at 1-1. And they've got a lot of work to do. So joining me to unpack this first test is regular listener of the podcast, an Australian cricket fan, and he was in Darwin watching this first test match, Jihan. Jihan, welcome. Unfortunately, it's not on pleasant terms, but nonetheless, welcome. And must have been tough viewing up there in Darwin.
Yeah, it was it was pretty tough. I mean, I went there up there. My parents joined me from Melbourne, and yeah, we were expecting dominant Australian win, and in the end, we got quite the opposite. Yeah, one of the biggest upsets, if not the biggest upset in Test cricket history, I would say. The number 9 ranked team beating the number 1 ranked team in the home of the number 1 ranked team. And I don't think at any stage in the game Australia were ahead or even pushing close to level pegging with Bangladesh. So yeah, it was pretty tough viewing.
Yes, no doubt. It certainly was. And, as we're going to be talking about in this review of this first test match, where did it go wrong for Australia? Where did it go right for Bangladesh? As you said, Jihan, it was the upset for all upsets in Test cricket. I think it sort of had the West Indian vibe about it when the West Indies won here a couple of years ago at the Gabba. It sort of got that vibe about it with this win against Bangladesh. Considering that they haven't done well going into this test series, losing the test match against Zimbabwe by an innings, and then they lost the tour match by an innings against the CA11, got bowled out for 54. It was definitely a surprise when they turned out this performance in this first test. So, as you said, an upset for the ages, and we're going to unpack it, talk about it, get your thoughts from your perspective, because you were there watching the game in person. But before we do that, Jihan, let's remind ourselves of how it went down. Let's quickly have a look at the match summary and how it panned out across the 4 days. Australia batted first, made 198 all out in their first innings. That wasn't enough, clearly. Steve Smith top scored with 71, and a good bowling performance from Hassan Mahmood took 6 wickets and really led the way with the ball there for Bangladesh. Bangladesh in their first innings, 426 all out. A very good batting performance from them. A good 100 from Tanzit, who's top scored with 101, his first Test 100. And good to see Josh Hazlewood taking 6 wickets on comeback from injury. He led the way with the ball for Australia in what was a difficult bowling sort of innings, really. And they were able to get the job done in the end. Australia in their second innings were all out for 284. Good to see Cameron Green top score with 104. He needed to score 100 badly, and he certainly did that. And Mahedi Hassan took 5 wickets and really led the way with Bangladesh with the ball there to really cap off the good work from Bangladesh. And in the end, Bangladesh needed to chase down 57. They did that comfortably with 1 wicket down. Monamola Huck top scored with 40 not out, and Josh Hazlewood took the only wicket for Australia. And Bangladesh won by 9 wickets, and Hassan Mahmood was named player of the match, and rightly so, for his 6 wickets in the first innings. So that's pretty much what happened. in the first Test match up there in Darwin. Well, what was the key moment and the key factor that really decided this Test match in favour of Bangladesh? Well, it was pretty much the first innings, really. Australia bowled out for 198. You're not winning too many Test matches from there. Bangladesh were able to bat well and bat well enough to get a lead of 228 and score over 400 in their innings, in their first innings. And you're chasing the game from then on in, and Australia were. And they gave up 198 runs, really. Head start to Bangladesh. And you look at the lead that they got, 228, makes a difference. That's where it was won and lost, really. In this Test match. First innings runs are so crucial in a Test match, but unfortunately for Australia, they couldn't get enough to be competitive or at least have some sort of advantage in this Test match. So that's the pivotal moment that really swung this Test match in Bangladesh's favour. Let's talk about Australia, Jihan, and unpack what went wrong, really, because it's not a great start to this run of Test matches, 20 or so Test matches in this period. Not a great start. They've already hit a road bump at the start of this almighty challenge. Pretty much batting was poor. They didn't look switched on. They didn't turn up. The execution was off. The bowlers toiled hard in the field and spent over 130 overs. I think that was punishment itself for Australia for 3 days. They dropped catches. They weren't switched on, maybe some complacency. They just didn't look on it from ball one, and it showed. As I said, the batting was poor, the bowling was poor. Things didn't go their way. There were frustration. Mitchell Starc had a bit of an altercation with Mehidy Hasan. At one point, you could see the frustration was really boiling up. Didn't go to plan. It was a nightmare from start to finish. They got to do well to bounce back. But there's nothing more to add on to that, really, Jihan. And you were there in person, and you get a bit of a better idea of how players and how the team goes when you're watching the game live in person rather than on television. So you're there at the ground, Jihan, watching Australia out there with the bat and with the ball in the field. What were the key takeaways you took from that, watching up close, and your overall thoughts on Australia's performance in this Test match? Because it was probably one of their worst performances for a very long time, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think that Australia basically lost this game on on how they batted in the first innings. Now, Pat Cummins won the toss, and I don't think it was a bad decision as such to bat first. He was obviously thinking with the hot weather across the 5 days, Nathan Lyon would come into play towards the end of the match, and I mean, it's a generally positive decision to bat first. The thing is, on day one, the wicket was a little bit tacky. There was a bit of moisture in the wicket. It was out of the 4 days that we were there as well. Day one was very humid. In the morning, it was like 70 or 80% humidity. Even during the day, it was about 60% humidity. So I was there at the time, first 3 days, and really felt the heat on the first day because of that humidity. So I think it was doing a little bit extra on that first day. But nothing untoward. It wasn't swinging around corners or seeming ridiculously. But what I felt happened was the Bangladeshi bowlers, they just bowled accurately, just outside off stump on the stumps. Some of the bowlers are quite skiddy. And I actually thought that, to be honest, batting techniques were exposed. We've always questioned whether Travis Head has that ability to open the batting, whether his defensive technique is solid enough, and I think it's been exposed here in both innings. In the Ashes, he kind of got away with it because England bowled so much rubbish at him. I remember one innings in Brisbane where Jofra Archer had his measure in and around off stump, and he couldn't get him away. He was playing and missing for a long time. Then he finally nicked one, and Jamie Smith dropped the catch. So I think you can expose that defensive technique with Travis Head against the hard new ball. Jake Weatherald, I watch him bat, and he doesn't seem to have any kind of balance. He doesn't stay upright. It seems like he's always batting on a sort of, like he's leaning over, like there's some kind of angle when he's batting, and he's trying to get everything down to third man. And that he ended up played a really pretty poor shot to get out, just chasing a wide ball. Maybe seemed a little bit, but I mean, well wide of off stump, and he threw his hands at it and nicked it behind. Not long before that, he had inside edged one past fine over the stumps pass towards fine leg for 4, and I think his technique was just getting a bit exposed there. Marnus Labuschagne, again, how many times have we seen him getting out like that? Just indecisiveness about whether to play or whether to leave around off stump. I remember, I think I said once that he sort of leaves, when he does leave, he leaves at the last minute, and he doesn't really move his feet, doesn't get forward. So that's just indecision. This particular occasion, he was actually batting on off stump. He sort of covers his stumps. This ball was probably on about 9th stump, maybe. There was no need to play it. And yeah, he's just sort of fended at it. When that tackiness is in the surface, those sort of balls, they sort of seem like they gain a bit of pace off the wicket, and an edge just went to slip. You could argue that if the pitch was dry and flat, that may not have happened, but it's just one of those things. On day one, those edges are going to go to slip. Cameron Green played a really loose shot, similar to his dismissal in Adelaide against Jofra Archer when he came back out after tea, just getting caught at mid-wicket to just an ordinary ball just down the leg side. And he'd actually, just before that, he'd just hit a 6 with a hook shot, which wasn't exactly under control, but he got a lot of it. He got most of it. And then, just the ball, just leg stump, half volley, fired in, and he's just sort of clipped it, completely mistimed it, and got caught at mid-wicket. So that was really soft dismissal. Alex Carey, again, similar to Head and Weatherall, just chopping on. So I think even, I think even his technique was getting exposed there a little bit. He holds his bat high up in the air. I don't think that ball did particularly much, too much. It was just a straight ball, maybe nipped in a little bit, but just couldn't keep that out. Bo Webster, I don't think the ball he got did that much either. I think these were just all defensive techniques that were being exposed, and Pat Cummins just went after a wide one as well. So overall it was just really poor batting. Steve Smith was the only one that looked comfortable and was able to hang around, and he batted pretty well. And then he ended up throwing it away because he was a little bit wary of having to bat with the tail. It was probably a little bit unnecessary. He was batting with Nathan Lyon at the time and went for a slog and skied it. But I thought he batted pretty well. It was just. I think I wouldn't say the batting conditions were really difficult, but there was definitely a bit in it for the seam bowlers. It was difficult to get runs or to get the bowling away. But yeah, I just think techniques got exposed, and they actually got off to a decent start. They were 45 for no wicket, but then once Bangladesh tightened up their lines, they just all it seemed was they just had to bowl at the stumps, just outside off stump, and these guys were they just didn't have the defence. Head and Carey and Webster, they all got out the same way, and then Weatherall in the second innings. They're all getting out in very similar ways, just not being able to defend and not having a solid defence.
Yes, definitely. And that's pretty much what caused the problems for Australia with the bat. But the bowling side of things, Jihan, um, 130 odd overs in the field was not great, considering that Hazelwood and Lyon are coming back from injuries. But I suppose the only positive from that is both of them got through it okay and unscathed. And obviously Hazelwood got 6 wickets, which was good. And good to see him pick up 300 Test wickets in the process as well. And Nathan Lyon picked up a wicket as well on comeback. So that's a positive. But the bowlers found it tough to try and make the Bangladesh batters play, because they had problems with trying to, well, first of all, try and get them out, but also Bangladesh's resolve and patience wore them down. So how would you assess the bowling performance from Australia? Obviously, this world-class attack, people would have said should be able to dismantle Bangladesh, but that wasn't to be the case, wasn't it? And Pat Cummins was trying to search for some answers, but couldn't find any.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say is that the wicket did change by day 2. It did flatten out a fair bit. It looked pretty benign, pretty placid a wicket to bat on. But at the same time, I still don't think Australia bowled that well. I think the Bangladeshi bowlers kind of bowled more at the stumps, skiddier, sort of enticing those sort of false shots with just challenging the Australian batsmen's defences and enticing those chop-ons because those defensive shots weren't good enough. I think Australia's bowlers bowled a little bit too wide of the stumps. Overall, probably too short, but then they also bowled a lot of half volleys as well. So that those are the scoring options for Bangladesh. Hazelwood was the best of the bowlers. He was the most consistent, most threatening, probably. I think Bangladesh is probably a little bit wary of Stark's pace more than anything. I kind of felt that even watching at the ground, Cummins' pace was down, or he didn't look like he definitely looked like not as quick as Stark. And Lyon bowled okay, but on days 2 and 3 there wasn't a huge amount in the wicket for him. And I think they where they struggled was they didn't particularly bowl well at the tail. They allowed the tail to hang around for a long time, and this has been a problem with this bowling attack in the past. They had a good period where they took 3 quick wickets at the end of day 2, and they could have. They were 6 down by that point, and they should have really tried to wrap that up, but they couldn't get the bowler that got 6 wickets. I can't remember his name. Mahmood. Yeah, they couldn't even get him out. So he was just blocking and hanging around while Miraz was able to get 65 or 70, and that continued on into day 3. And then even after that, they were struggling to get the 8, 9, 10, and 11. So they managed to prolong that innings and get a big lead. And there was a point that I've heard from a few people that when the wickets get flat, this bowling attack actually do struggle because they struggle to make things happen. And I think that is true. And thinking back, they struggled in the Ashes in 2023, and I think it was at Manchester, the drawn game, when the wicket got really flat and Johnny Bairstow just flayed them everywhere, and Pat Cummins was sort of didn't have any answer. There's been different instances like that where they've really struggled. I remember the Test match in Sri Lanka in 2022. They won the first one convincingly, and the second one the wicket really flattened out, and Chandimal ended up getting a double 100, and they just had no answers on a really flat wicket. Even you could even say similarly on that Pakistan tour in the first 2 Test matches. they just were not effective at all. And England went there a year later, and with Ben Stokes's weird captaincy and eccentric fields and stuff, they were still, and Ollie Robinson of all people was able to get wickets on those kind of pitches. So I think when the wicket gets really flat, sometimes even though they're such a great statistically one of the greatest bowling attacks that's ever played, I think they still really struggle when the wicket's really flat and it's not really doing anything. I think that's exactly what happened here. And Bangladesh they just kept continuing partnerships throughout that batting order to the point where they ended up compiling a big first innings score, and it was just classic Test cricket. I mean, the way they played was the kind of way you would expect Australia playing against England, like in the 90s or 2000s or something. It was just classic Test cricket, classic Test match batting.
Yes, indeed. I couldn't agree more with those points that you raised there, Jihan. But it wasn't great. To you, do they, from your perspective, do they look a bit, like a team that hasn't played a lot of Test cricket since they haven't played since January? And I thought they looked a bit underdone, probably, even though Pat said the preparation was good leading into this Test match and the series. But you need match practice and the overs and the legs and the rhythm to get back into the swing of things. They haven't done that since January. Some of these guys have played in the IPL. Some have played in the ODI series in Bangladesh and T20 series as well, and also in Pakistan and T20 World Cup. Did you feel like they were underdone in terms of preparedness for this Test match, even though Pat said the preparation was good?
Yeah, I think in the bowling, definitely looked like Pat Cummins' bowling was underdone, or not as prepared as say he would be mid-series. You could say the same about Cameron Green's bowling, but I think the biggest evidence for that was in the fielding, and the number of drop catches and misfields on the boundary, which you don't really associate with Australia too much. The worst was the catch that Smith dropped on the boundary, and that happened not too far from where I was sat, and the ball went up in the air. You just thought, I didn't realise it was Smith. I just thought, whoever's there is going to take this, finally a wicket. And when he went to, he settled like in a position fairly early on, and then when he goes to catch it, he sort of moves forward and to his right, so he clearly wasn't in position. In the right position, so he clearly misjudged that, and then dropped it. And then I couldn't believe that it was Steve Smith that dropped it when I realised afterwards. And I mean, I have seen him drop catches, but not catches like that. Those are the sort of catches that you just don't see someone like him dropping. So they were very rusty. There was a lot of poor cricket, or sort of unforced errors in tennis terminology. They were pretty poor in a lot of aspects in this game, in this match.
Yes, they were. Well, they didn't really. Well, that was evident based on session by session, sort of head to head. Really, I think they had a few sessions where they shared it with Bangladesh, but after that, it's pretty much Bangladesh that won outright sessions throughout the whole Test match. That's a good indication of how well Bangladesh played and how poorly Australia played. So a number of factors that contributed to this defeat. But, they're a quality side, and they'll bounce back and they'll do their process and whatever to review and then look ahead to the second Test. But they need to be doing a lot of things better, especially with their batting in particular. The bowling will sort itself out, as it always does. It's more so the batting. So positives, I suppose, Steve Smith scored runs in both innings. Cameron Green's 100 is good. Obviously, Jake Weatherald's not going to play in the second test. He's been dropped. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Marnus is probably last chance saloon. He really needs to pick up his A game. So yeah, there's some positives to take out of what was a difficult test match. And you need to look at the positives. As I mentioned, Smith, Green scoring runs, and Green in particular with 100. Obviously, Hazelwood and Lyon coming back from injury, getting through those long spells in the field. Hazelwood picking up wickets. So that's a positive from what was a disappointing result. So, yeah, nothing more to add on to that, really, Jihan. Just poor, and they need to do better going into the second test. It's simple as that. So that's Australia. Let's talk about Bangladesh.
So just one final thing I'd say is if they do get challenging conditions or when the pitch isn't like really flat and there's loads of runs available, if the ball's doing a little bit, they just need to be able to hang in, take singles, keep the scoreboard ticking as much as they can, but just keep wickets in hand, because it will get better as the pitch dries out. The ball will come onto the bat, and there will be runs available. And I think that's something that they're just not doing that at the moment. And they did the same thing in Melbourne against England last year. The pitch will get better, so they just need to be able to hang in there and trust their defenses, trust their techniques. At the moment, it doesn't feel like they do trust their techniques, defensive techniques.
No, that's spot on. And the batting group that did trust their defensive techniques was Bangladesh, and let's talk about them, Jihan. They were outstanding. I think they surprised a lot of people, including you and me. In our preview, we said a few things that, if they can be competitive, at least that would be a tick. And if someone can score 100 from their batting side of things and take a fifer from their bowling side of things, then that would be great. But they've ticked all those boxes, and they did them very well. And it was good old-fashioned test match cricket mentality, the way they batted, the way they formed partnerships. They wore down the Australian bowlers. Townsend, in his second test match, scoring his first 100 in Australia, that's career-defining for him. So, for him, he played well. The captain, Shanto, stood up. Mehdi Hassan, scoring runs with the tailenders. The bowling group, Mahmood, 6 wickets, and Mehdi Hassan with 5 wickets. And, all the other bowlers chipped in as well. It was a clinical performance, Jihan. I don't think anyone could fault their performance, really. As soon as they bowled Australia out for 198 in the first innings, you could see the momentum going their way, and they really believed that they could actually do it, and they did. And they deserved to be in the position they were because they played good cricket. So what was your takeaway from Bangladesh in this test match, Jihan? Watching them in the stands and going about their business, what impressed you the most about their performance?
Yeah, look, I think the wicket had flattened out by the time they got to bat on it, particularly on day 2. But they just showed good defensive technique, and they put the bad balls away. I have to admit, I've never heard of Tanzid Hassan. It was the first time I'd seen him playing. I think he had played mostly white ball cricket, really. But he had a bit of luck. He did get dropped on that first evening by Nathan Lyon. If it was, maybe someone a bit younger in the covering, he may have been out. But and he got a duck in the second innings. But after he had that bit of luck in being dropped, he just played a classic Test match innings. He defended well, simple technique, forward, back, straight bat, and if they overpitched, he drove the ball for 4. put the bad balls away. So yeah, he was just really good. He just played a classic Test match innings, similar with Monmouth Huck. Sorry, not Shanto, and also Monmouth Huck as well. I think Mehdi Hassan Miraz was the guy that was able to really push that lead as far as they could, and he got 65 of 154 balls, so it's not like he was scoring really quickly, but he just stayed in there, kept the scoreboard ticking over, managed to put together partnerships with the tail enders, and it was hot. It was 33, 34 degrees days 2 and 3, so really ground the Australian bowlers down and kept them out in the field. And if you look at that scorecard, Hassan Mahmood has batted for 92 balls, so they were struggling to get him out. And Taskim Ahmed's batted for 32 balls, therefore is 14 not out. So I think they were just they were really good. I think one of the things I said before in the preview was I really want Australia to be ruthless and professional. That's all they need to do. But in the end, that's exactly what Bangladesh did. They were ruthless and professional, and without any any kind of fanfare or showing off or entertaining the crowd or baseball or any of that nonsense. They just played decent Test cricket, and they ground the opposition down slowly over the 4 days until they got completely on top, and then ended up winning the match. But I think the way they played was very calculated, very professional, and they just played classic Test match cricket, to be honest.
Yeah, they did. There's nothing more you can say about it. I suppose when you're a lower ranked team and you're an underdog team like Bangladesh, for example, you have to play above your level that you're capable of. You need everything to go your way as well. And they certainly did that in this Test match. So the stars aligned for them and they seized the opportunity. I think many people thought, well, they're not used to this position, especially against Australia. Some people were saying they could bottle it and they could lose, but they kept their nerve, especially in that first innings. They lost 3 quick wickets and in a bit of trouble, but it wasn't until Mehdi Hassan came in and Mahmood steadied the ship and they were able to get back on track after that. So just the calmness and the composure and just wanting to prove a point. I think Shanto said before the series, well, he said after the game on Fox, he said, we just wanted to play 5 days, just try and take it to 5 days and see what happens. And they certainly did that. They took it to 4 days, be competitive, and they were able to capitalize. And just to prove a point, he also said before the series, the reason we haven't been in Australia for more than 23 years is because they don't think we play good enough cricket. Now, that was certainly the case when Bangladesh first came into Test cricket in the early 2000. So 26 years down the line, I think they're starting to prove that point that they can be competitive. They've won here in Australia, but they've also won in New Zealand as well. And that was in 2022. That was a big win for them 4 years ago. Now they've won here in Australia. I think they go to England next year for a one-off test, I think, before that Ashes series. So they could have tremendous belief in knocking off England there, given what they've done here in Australia. So they're starting to prove the doubters wrong. And I think we had some people comment on the preview that we did, Jihan, about Bangladesh and saying they're a waste of space and all that stuff, which we don't agree with. Obviously, they're not. They're more than capable of playing good cricket, and we saw that in this Test match, and they're starting to prove people wrong. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's 26 years down the track, and they're starting to get it together. And obviously it helps when you have a coach like Phil Simmons, who's professional and he's been around for a very long time, being a part of the West Indian great era. He's old school. He knows what to do to get the best out of the players. So a pretty good team effort all around, really. They just were able to stick it out and thoroughly deserve their victory. So Your thoughts on that, Jihan, about them proving the doubters wrong, and do you think this would probably convince people that maybe we should take notice of Bangladesh now that they're starting to get things in order and starting to produce some good results of late, which they have?
Yeah, look, I think if they're able to win more consistently at home, then they should be getting more test matches away from home. They've got good players. They've got a lot of good players in that lineup. I think, the bowling attack. I know they've got Nitesh Rana, who's injured at the moment, who bowls pretty quickly, but the bowling attack's bowling 120s, 130s. They're not exactly the pace you'd expect for a top class test bowling attack, but they were able to expose Australia's top orders batting techniques. And that's all you need. If you're able to do that, then you're gonna do okay. They had a little bit of assistance in the wicket in the first innings, and then the spinners came into play when the pitch was breaking up towards the end. But they've got batsmen, and they've got decent medium pacers. I've heard that their pitches in Bangladesh are a little bit faster and a little bit more seam friendly these days, because they've looked into that and realised that they need to develop fast bowlers to be successful in Test cricket, and particularly overseas. So if they keep doing that and they keep producing batsmen, then they'll definitely improve. And you may see them getting to sort of like a mid-table position, and overtaking the likes of Sri Lanka, Pakistan, West Indies, even maybe challenging New Zealand.
Well, yes, in this World Test Championship cycle, I think they're fourth.
Yeah.
So that's a good indication of the progress that they've made. Obviously, we know with the World Test Championship, it's not quite all the same all round, isn't it? It's quite iffy with the calculations and all that stuff. But still, nonetheless, they're up in the top echelon.
I think the one thing that they do well, the one thing they've done well in this match is they keep things simple. There's no like crazy theories, or we've got to they don't come up with any kind of weird formulas, or we've got to do this at this stage and this at that stage, and there's none of that. It's sort of like, we've got some medium pace bowlers, we're going to challenge these guys' techniques, we've got a bit of assistance in the wicket, and second innings we're going to use the scoreboard pressure that we created, and with the batting we are just going to have simple techniques and keep out the bad balls and keep the scoreboard ticking by putting the bad balls away. They just did the basics right, and just goes to show that if you do that, you're most of the time you're going to be fairly successful. It doesn't take any sort of grand theory of rattling the opposition with reverse sweeps and scoops and Bazball nonsense. You just you just have to do the basics well.
Yes, they certainly did that. It's just basics, really. And I suppose when you're a lower ranked team, or a team that people expect you to struggle, you have to do the basics well.
Yeah.
To compete with the top ranked teams, and that's what Bangladesh did in this Test match. And it's not going to work all the time, obviously, but when it does work, it pays off, and it certainly did in this Test match. And I think we should pay them some credit and doff our caps and say well played, and because they played well, and that's why they won this Test match. And whatever happens in the second Test, it doesn't matter, because the pressure is off, and they've already achieved what they set out to achieve, and they should be very proud of their efforts, no doubt about that. Bangladesh. Let's preview the second Test match, Jihan, of this series, which will be in Mackay which is in North Queensland, and it will be the first ever test match at this venue in Mackay. It has hosted some ODIs. It hosted Australia and South Africa last summer in that ODI up there. There's been some women's ODIs and T20s as well. There's been some domestic games up there as well. So it's not familiar to cricket. But for Test cricket, it's a new sort of unknown, really, because we haven't been here before, so we don't know what to expect. Let's talk about it and talk about Australia, Jihan, in terms of the 11. Now, they're going to make one change, and that's certain. That's Matt Renshaw. He's coming in for Jake Weatherald, who's been dropped, and he will open the batting with Travis Head, and the team will be the same as it was in the first test, except for Weatherald out for Matt Renshaw. Do you agree with that selection, Jihan? Obviously, they had to make some sort of a change. If they didn't, then they would have had a lot of criticism because of that. But seeing that they had to do something, they made a change. They brought in Renshaw. Do you think that's the right option? He's been doing well this year for Australia in ODIs and T20s. Do you think he's the guy to rectify the top of the order at least?
Yeah, I think that is the right decision. He's the guy that's been in the best form over the last couple of years across all formats. It's a little bit harsh on Weatherald in the sense that he only managed to get one match to prove himself, and it is kind of like he's sort of ended up being the fallout guy for this horrendous loss. But I think what probably contributed towards that is the manner of his dismissals. The way he looked in the first innings just looked a little bit all over the place, and then ends up just flashing at a wide ball and nicking behind to a nothing ball, really. I mean, and that was the opening. And then he just sort of, in the second innings, just chopped on to a ball, again, just a straight ball at the stumps that didn't do a huge amount. And I think technically in his career, he's got that 170, one score of 70. I can't remember which match that was in the Ashes, but
that was Brisbane. Brisbane.
Yeah. Apart from that, his technique really has kind of been exposed. And as I said, he looks like he's not aligned. He's sort of misaligned. He sort of bats like he's falling over all the time. And that's been exposed by the quicker bowlers like Jofra Archer, and was exposed in this match here. So I think that is the right decision, given how well Matt Renshaw's been playing recently. I think the rest of the team should stay the same. There's a lot of people are getting on the back of Marnus Labuschagne, but I think he still has a few credits in the bank. I thought in the second innings, he had a bit of luck early on, but he was starting to look good in that innings. And then he just, against the run of play, just sort of missed the ball off the spinner. And as good a player of spin that he is, he does randomly get out to spinners at the worst possible times.
Yes.
I can remember in the 23 Ashes when they were building themselves into winning position in one match, and he got out slog sweeping to Moeen Ali on the boundary, and that was kind of against the run of play, and that's what's started or got England back into the match, and which I think they ended up winning, and changing the course of the series. And then also when he was batting well against India, I think it was in Melbourne, when he got to about 70, he had 100 for the taking, and he ended up getting caught mid-on trying to hit Washington Sundar over the top. I don't know if you remember that. So he just randomly does throw it away occasionally against spinners when he's supposed to be a good player of spin, which he is. So, which is it's just one of those annoying things. But I think if in preview I said that he was going to be the top leading run scorer in the series, but I have a feeling he will come good in Mackay. So Yeah, just because he looked okay in that second innings. Steve Smith, obviously in form. Cameron Green has turned things around. I think even in the Ashes last year, he looked good at various times. He just hasn't been able to go on. This is the first time he's actually been able to go on without throwing it away. So he just needs to keep doing that. If he keeps doing that, he'll be fine. Bo Webster's an interesting one. I just, with Bo Webster, I kind of feel like he's a bit of a. I don't really know what his role in the side is. Like, I know people compare him to Cameron Green and say that he's challenging and pushing Cameron Green for his spot, but I don't think Bo Webster's a top 6 batsman or a frontline bowler. So, he's a kind of specialist number 7 or number 8 batsman, and his bowling isn't, it's not as good as Green's. It's not great, really. I was kind of surprised that he didn't bowl spin in this match, because I thought he bowled pretty well when he bowled his spin in Sydney last year, and he got some wickets there. I think he made a crucial breakthrough. He may have even got Joe Root out. I can't remember. He got someone out LBW when the ball gripped off the wicket. But I think where he could be useful is on those subcontinent tours, where he could come in as a lower order batsman and then bowl some spin. But I don't think his medium pace is really up to it in Test cricket. Maybe as a sort of change bowler, or get a few overs out of him, or to be able to rotate, get the fast bowlers to change ends or whatever. But and even his batting, I don't think his defensive technique is great. Both dismissals in this match, I didn't think they were particularly great balls. I just think that was just his defense not being too great. Whereas I think the difference between him and Cameron Green is Cameron Green can play in that side as a top order batsman, which is proved in this match, getting 100. So yeah, the rest of the bowlers, I think that will stay the same. I mean, as well as Alex Carey has done with the bat, even him, I don't think he's a top 6 batsman either. I think him coming to bat at number 6 kind of weakens the batting lineup. I'd actually prefer him to be at number 6 and get a specialist batsman at him to be bat at number 7 and get a specialist batsman in at number 6, maybe a Curtis Patterson or whoever's in form in the Shield in terms of middle order batsmen. But yeah, that would be how I would go forward. Happy with Matt Renshaw opening, but yeah, I think hopefully they've gotten all the rust out after that first game, and hopefully they put a big score on the board this second Test match and just play a professional game and win convincingly. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yes, indeed. And obviously, when you look at the both teams, obviously there's no dispute that Australia are the strongest team out of the two. There's no dispute about that. No one's arguing about that. So,
they're ranked number 1, and they have been for a long time. And Bangladesh number 9. So, the results show that the last few years.
Definitely. So, they do have the ability to beat this Bangladesh side. Obviously, 9 times out of 10, that one game we saw in this Test match, obviously. So, sort of got a bit of an Indian sort of bounce back about it. Jihan, remember when they lost the first Test in Perth and they came back and won the second Test in Adelaide, the scrutiny behind that. Similar thing against...
They were underdone that time as well in Perth.
Against Bangladesh here. So a very similar storyline. No doubt they probably won't make the same mistake twice, and obviously need to bounce back and prove a point, which they will. So they'll definitely do that. Quickly with Bangladesh, I don't think they'll probably make any changes to their 11. They'll probably keep the same 11 because they won the first test. Don't need to make any change. Depends if someone's picked up an injury or they think they should bring in someone else. We'll have to wait and see. But they'll probably keep the same 11, keep that continuity, really. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. But obviously, I think Phil Simmons, the coach, recently has said that he expects Australia to come back hard, and obviously reaffirms that to the team and says we're here to play 2 test matches, not 1. And that will be the challenge for them going into this test match. Coming up from such a high to, playing the second test match, it's very hard to get back into the flow of things and be present. And often whenever you win a momentous game like this, you don't do so well in the next game. You tend to have a bit of a hangover and all that sort of thing. So, but it doesn't really matter what happens in this test match, to be honest with them. Even if they lose badly and normal service is resumed, I don't think anyone can begrudge them for that because of what they did in the first test. So your thoughts on Bangladesh, Jihan? How do you think they're going to approach this second test match? Do you think it's going to be a bit of hangover, or do you think, they're going to be up for the challenge, but regardless of what happens, it's already been a success, really?
Yeah, I mean, if they, before they came to Australia, if they knew that they were going to go away from the series winning 1 test match, or even, just drawing the series 1-1, they would have taken that. They would have been very happy with that. But I think just in this second test match, if Australia bat a lot better and get rid of all the rust, I think if Australia put a score on the board, I think Bangladesh are just going to feel that scoreboard pressure, and I don't think their batting is going to do as well as it did in the last test match. I think, having bowled them out for 200 and with the wicket flattening out, and in that heat, there wasn't as much pressure on the batting lineup. Not to say that they didn't bat well, they did. But I think, if Australia get a score on the board, I just have a feeling that Bangladesh will fold a little bit like they did against the CA11. So, yeah, and but they just have to keep doing the same thing again. Just batting sensibly with good defensive techniques, putting the bad balls away, and just accurate bowling with their medium paces and spin.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good point that you make there about scoreboard pressure. They didn't really feel that really in this first test match. So we'll have to see what they do with their batting when they are under pressure. If Australia put up a score of 300 plus, 350 or something batting first, and if Bangladesh lose a few early wickets, that pressure will mount. So they haven't been tested in that side of things. It'd be interesting to see what they do there. But as I said, regardless of the result, it doesn't really matter. They've already achieved what they set out to achieve, and they would have signed on the dotted line. If you were going to win a test in Australia, they would have taken that. So I don't think we can begrudge them if they have a bad performance in the second test. I think, that's just the way cricket goes. You win some and you lose some. So we'll have to see how they respond. But
the temperatures aren't going to be as hot either. It's going to be like 26, 27 max. So it's not going to be as hard for the bowling and fielding side to get through a number of overs.
No, that's different conditions to Darwin, that's for sure. And also a different venue as well for Australia and also for Bangladesh. We haven't played a lot of Test cricket here. So that will be interesting to see how both teams approach it in terms of adapting to the conditions. So nonetheless, let's hope for another exciting competitive test match like we had here in Darwin for the second test of this series. Now then, some final thoughts to wrap up our review of this first test between Australia Bangladesh. I got to say, it was a pretty great test match from start to finish. We saw a good contest between bat and ball at times. Bangladesh surprising all of us with the way that they applied themselves in this test match. They were outstanding. Australia were disappointing, but as we've talked about in this review today, a lot of factors: rustiness, complacency, poor batting, poor execution. They'll definitely tighten things up for this second test in Mackay. And let's hope it will be another good test match in Mackay for the second test of the series. Jihan, some of your final thoughts before we wrap up today. What are your thoughts from this first test match?
Yeah, it's one of Australia's worst losses of all time, if not the worst loss. I don't think I've seen them play any worse, to be honest, particularly the fielding and batting on that first day, and even a little bit in the second innings. They looked underprepared, rusty. As they were losing, I felt that their temperament showed that they were getting frustrated, and I actually didn't like some of the behaviour that was coming out, like Stark telling the batsman to get off the pitch. I mean, that's really a job for the umpire, and saying you're not in Bangladesh now is really sort of unnecessary. And I could tell that was all coming from frustration, that the game was getting away from them. Steve Smith telling the Bangladeshi players to go for the review. And when they said to him, you just bat, like, well, you don't need to tell us what to do, and he was just like, I can do what I want. It's just a little bit unnecessary when the game's slipping away from you. And then actually, I did have a question, an umpiring question for you. Actually, that there was an incident where they appealed for a caught behind, and it was the one where it was the bat on the ground with Steve Smith, and he signalled for a review before the umpire had made a decision. Now, can the umpire say, I'm not giving that out, batsman's reviewed my decision to give it not out, and go upstairs, prove that it's not out, and Australia lose their review because they questioned the decision that was given not out, which ended up being correct?
Yeah, so it was the correct decision afterwards. I don't know. I think I have to check the playing conditions from the ICC, Jihan, on that. But he did signal for a review as soon as I think it was umpire Kumadharmasena raised his finger.
No, but he didn't raise his finger. He signaled for the review before the umpire made the decision.
Well, and usually an umpire won't signal out if it's an obvious dismissal, like obvious caught behind. They don't really signal.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I think in that instance, I think it was what Kumadharmasena did in that instance, and then he raised his finger afterwards just to confirm the decision. But sometimes umpires don't raise their finger if it's an obvious nick.
Yeah,
you're out anyway.
Because apparently David Warner was on commentary, and he said that wasn't on from Steve Smith to review it before the decision was given.
Yeah. I suppose he already made up his mind.
Yeah.
Already, so it doesn't really matter.
He knew he hadn't hit it, I suppose.
Yeah, he knew he didn't hit it, so he went up. It's the same with if you've got an inside edge onto the pad for an LBW, you signal straight away. Yeah, so same sort of thing, really. So
there's just a couple of bits of behaviour like that I didn't really like, and I kind of felt that it was just showing that their frustration was just coming out of the fact that they were losing this game, and they didn't know how to turn it around. But hopefully they can turn it around in Mackay.
Well, they got to need to because they definitely need a response, and I suppose it's the way you respond from setbacks. It's how you do it in the comeback that matters the most. And certainly for Australia, they need to turn things around ASAP to get back on on track. And no doubt they can, because they are a good team and a professional team, and they will be able to do that, you would think, in the second test in Mackay to end the series. Well, thanks everyone for watching and listening to our review of this first test between Australia and Bangladesh. Before we go, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. So the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Thank you, Jihan, for joining me today to review this first test between Australia and Bangladesh. Always great to hear your insights. And also thank you to everyone watching and listening as well. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.